what's going on, guys? It's Funkify here once again for the Free to Play cast. We're on episode 70, 30% away from being episode 100. I can't believe the Free to Play cast is almost to 100, or is closer to 100 than it is to 50, I guess you could say. I'm your host, Funkify. Of course, I've got two excellent co-hosts with me. They've been with me for the last couple of weeks, Jason and Kevin. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Better than 70%, I'd say.
Better than 70%. He's at least 70.1% better than...
At least. That's probably about it. Yeah.
All right. And then, Kevin, what is your current percentage of doing okay?
I'm about 95. It's pretty awesome being here in San Diego right now. So
95. You're an A+. Look at you.
I am.
You are practically the top of your class. Now, it is, of course, upcoming Memorial Day weekend, or it is Memorial Day weekend. Some of us have got plans. I know I don't really have any plans for tomorrow other than helping a restaurant open. And generally we're going to have a pretty good week, although it's going to be a pretty hot one, I hear. Jason, how's the temperature looking there in Texas?
I think it's supposed to hit around 90 or so, and my air conditioning is not working, so it should be fun.
That sounds like it's going to be quite the pain. Kevin, how are you holding up there? I don't even know where you are, Kevin, so wherever you are, how are you holding up?
Well, it's the hottest day it's been all weekend here in San Diego, but it's supposed to cool off tomorrow before I have to head back to the valley.
Nice. Now, see, I am in the middle of California, Southern California, so it is also hot here as well. I think it hits about 95 with dry heat, and just terrible. I'm inside here, but I've got a giant open case computer sitting next to me, blowing about 90-degree temperature, weather, heat, blowing, whatever you want to call it, into my face. It's really bad, but we've got some interesting news to talk about. We, of course, have Dragon's Prophet Open Beta coming up. War Thunder is getting a port over to the PS4, which means free-to-play games are incoming on the PS4. Obsidian is working on an MMO. We've got some League of Legends news, a new map, a new cinematic that just was released today, and, of course, Neverwinter's never-ending woes. So to begin with, let's go ahead and jump right in. Our first news article today, of course, revolves around the upcoming Pokemon/Dragon MMO, Dragon's Prophet. The open beta is slated to start on this May 30th. Currently 4 days away, probably 3 or 2 days away by the time you guys actually get this episode. And I got a chance to jump in it towards the end of the closed beta, check out really how the game plays, its current state, and what have you. And for those of you that don't know, it has over 300 unique dragons, quote unquote, because not all of them can fly. Players can capture and train and do all kinds of sorts of things with. Now, Kevin and Jason, have you guys had any interest in actually trying out Dragon's Prophet?
I got to play it early in the closed beta when it was really horribly glitchy and would crash every 15 minutes. There were some cool parts about it. I did like all the different dragons. I mean, the fact that they called them dragons was a little weird at first, but they kind of tried to explain it a bit. But I did enjoy some of the open action combat, and it had some good ideas. I just was really having issues with just all the problems it was having, though.
I'm going to quiz you. Treat me as if I'm an MMO noob. What is the explanation for why these dragons do not have wings? Because I think that's sort of a point a lot of people will be confused about.
Historically, in the lore of this, there was a time when there was just the major dragons, and apparently one decided it was going to start mixing itself up with some lizards, and it created these younger spawns of dragon-like creatures, which then began to propagate and evolve and change over the course of who knows how long.
So basically, one dragon has started to get freaky with a bunch of different species, and now we have all these different kind of dragons.
Pretty much.
Unprotected sex ruins everything.
Unprotected dragon sex ruins absolutely everything. What are we now, in 3-4 minutes into this podcast? This is going swell. Now, Jason, what exactly, have you tried Dragon's Prophet at all?
Yeah, I did jump into the beta a little bit this last week, like you said, just before the servers went down and they wiped everything, so I didn't get too far into it. I didn't really get to try a dragon out. I didn't get that far, only had like an hour or so, got up to like level 10 or whatever.
Well, you should have had a dragon by level 10.
Maybe it was like 8 or 9. It wasn't exactly. I was still working out of that first village mostly.
What I think I realized is there's a quest that it doesn't tell you to go get. It's just on the map, and you just have to go and get it. And then that one is the one that tells you to go train a dragon.
Yeah, I think I got my first dragon like level 4 or something.
Yeah, it did take me a while too, Jason, because I was like level 9 at that point. I'm like, did I miss a quest? What's happening? And it's on some sort of remote island in the corner that you have to go to, and then they give you a quest to go get a dragon.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game in beta. I mean, it was definitely not finished. Between that and just some of the animations weren't looking that great to me. But again, being in beta, I was willing to give it a little bit of a pass on that sort of thing. The frame rate was kind of iffy for me, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised. See, I didn't know they had like sort of dynamic events in there. Even though it was kind of the same, it was kind of that same one that just it took a long time to run, and it was a little repetitive. The thing with the drunken giants or whatever right outside that first village, but it was kind of neat they had that.
I would certainly say there was nice little surprises, like the two completely separate starting zones with completely separate enemies, dragons, and quest lines was sort of a nice touch. I didn't expect that. Typically, MMORPGs this is obviously an Eastern MMORPG that's coming to the West. It wasn't being created by Sony Online or Infernum. It was being created by RuneWaker, which of course made Runes of Magic. And so the MMO itself did sort of exhibit some of those Asian qualities at times, I felt, especially with like the quest types. Lots of go, kill, and fetch and that kind of stuff. But there was nice features like a fairly good character customization. There was also, I like the diversity in dragons. There is actually a lot of different dragons that you can capture. And like I said before, the two starting zones was fairly nice. Now, it got super annoying, and this is probably one of my biggest complaints because it's so close to open beta. But what did you guys think of all like the system blah 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 number 123 2000 lead text spam that was coming on the screen due to the lack of basically little tips and what have you on the items?
When I first started, it wasn't even like that far. I mean, half of it was still in another language, and the other half was you go to do something, the NPC would just start saying things in system error, blah, 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 and you'd be like, well, this is informative, and somehow you had to figure out the quest through it. From lately, when it's been playing, it's better, but I wouldn't play this game for more than 20 minutes if it was that way in an open beta, personally.
Jason, did you experience a lot of that?
No, the only thing that really bugged me was just how horribly the voice acting matched up with the text. I mean,
it did. It was desynced pretty bad.
I mean, it wasn't like it was neither of them was like badly translated. Once they're English, they both read fine, but the subtitles were almost completely different than what the person was saying.
I felt like they wrote the script and they put the script in. And then when they had to record, they recorded something completely different. Because I've had that happen in other games, too. Where it's like...
I've never seen it that bad. I mean, I'll see occasionally an occasional word or maybe a whole sentence being messed up, but this was like almost every line.
It was every line. It was if the actor just looked at the script and like threw it by... He like looked at it once, one pass, and threw it over his shoulder. And he's like, okay, we got this. He took one take of it.
I don't know how it gets that messed up, unless there were just a ton of changes that went on during the time, and some of that didn't get communicated from the voice acting coaches to the script writers.
I can imagine like someone, they would have had to put the two together, right? They would have had to sat there and be like, okay, this one goes here and that. And then they just didn't even put two and two together, like, okay, these don't match up at all, like 1%.
Again, that's the sort of thing where it's not like a game-breaking thing. It doesn't really affect the game, so I can understand that just being something they didn't get to yet in beta. So.
Oh, yeah, I understand that completely. I just think it's comical, like, because at some point someone does have to put that in, and so if they do let that go in, and be in the full release, I think that'll be somewhat of a gaffe, if you will. But yeah, there are sort of like weird, inconsistent bugs like that, both with the text and the animations, and in general, just things that don't break the game, like you've said. But certainly they add up over time. Yeah. And it does worry me because open beta is around the corner. If they're going to treat the open beta like many companies are treating open betas now, where it's basically a soft release and they can start charging money for the game, I would argue that it isn't currently in a state where they should do that. Right. If it's similar to that upon open beta. Just to compare to an MMO that's currently already out and went through a similar thing.
I can't imagine what you're going to talk about.
I know, right? Neverwinter, But in the case of Neverwinter, even those bugs were a little bit more subtle, at least to the average user, right? Someone who was doing sleuthing could have found those bugs, and like there was people who reported that stuff. But certainly it's a little bit easier to see the bugs for the average user in Dragon's Prophet. And I think it would be a little bit of a middle finger to fans or middle finger to players if Sony's like, yeah, we can start charging for this, no problem, you know.
They're offering a Dragon Pack as their pre-launch thing, so technically they will take your money right now, but
they'll take it right now with no guarantee that they fix the text. Yes. But obviously it's Sony. Kevin, I wanted to ask you, because you've seen sort of some PlanetSide 2 stuff and whatnot. Is it pretty, to me at least, it seems pretty like a stark contrast what Sony will let slide for their own MMOs and then what they'll let slide for an MMO that they're publishing. Have you noticed that at all when you compare?
Yeah, it's a pretty big difference. When they're fully behind it, they're like, oh, this is going to be polished a lot more. But when they're not and they're just kind of like, whatever, it's like, it's good enough.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like they just had a deadline and like, well, it has to go out May 30th. And so they're just like, we're not going to push it back at all. We're not going to make sure all these things are done. Just trust us. It's okay. But I don't know. I like the Pokemon sort of aspect of the game, though. When I was doing the live stream, I put the Pokemon theme on at the end. And if you combine it with the cinematic trailer, not cinematic, but the trailer that came out with the game, it actually goes quite well. Have you guys checked that out? Actually,
yeah, I saw that. I mean, that's why I wanted to play it. That looked awesome. It didn't look a whole lot like what I was doing when I did have my dragon, but
I think you just need to put the Pokemon theme song on loop, like continuously.
Yeah, I just watched that video repeatedly, over and over and over again with the Pokemon theme. I tried to get it to sync just perfectly, so it was great.
I think for the end part of this, I'm going to just go ahead and put in the Pokemon theme as we finish out this article discussion, just as have it like a slight audio in the background you can kind of hear, just to be like, yeah, Dragon's Puff, Pokemon MMO, it's just a bunch of dragons now. But they do have different types and whatnot too, and like different abilities, and it does have that sort of feel to it. It may be the closest thing we get to a Pokemon-ish MMO, other than Digimon Online, which I don't really count that.
No.
But alright, so moving on to some MOBA news. May is quickly being like a May Madness month for MOBAs. Say that 4 times fast. May Madness month for MOBAs.
May MOBA Madness month.
May me Mamu Dogface Banana Patch. New dawngate details. The EA MOBA that's set to come out already in closed beta, which coincidentally, if you guys actually are playing it or were lucky enough to get a key, you can now post footage or live stream it. They pretty much didn't have an NDA whatsoever starting in closed beta. So as soon as you can get in, you can start making footage of it. We got some details. A machinima video was posted. Looks like they had some kind of exclusive deal to show it. But it basically detailed a lot of the certain iconic mechanics. And Jason, did you get a chance to check out that video? Are you much of a MOBA player, Jason?
I'm not, and I watched it, but it was sort of like, it's tough for me to really tell and to really classify it as, well, this is very different from. I mean, some very basic stuff like number of lanes or whatever, but it's tough for me to really look at it and say, well, this is clearly more strategic than League of Legends, or not as much as or whatever. So it makes me wonder how much traction they're gonna get, because the people who know that sort of thing are probably going to stick with League of Legends or Dota 2 or whatever. So are they going to have to get the people who are interested in MOBAs but aren't playing those, which is who exactly?
So this kind of brings up an interesting question. I'm going to ask you, why aren't you really into MOBAs? Is it because there hasn't been a MOBA that has gameplay mechanics that you enjoy or would like? Or is it because you just don't find the overall style of traditional MOBA something that you can really get behind? Because
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because with dawngate, of course they're trying to pull on audiences that already know or play MOBAs, but it sounds like EA is also trying to go behind and get people who just are in general interested in the idea or maybe don't play one already. And so I'm curious, what's the winning combination to get those players who either don't want to play or want to move on from something traditional like League of Legends or Dota, or just haven't ever played a MOBA in general because they don't really fancy the idea of the mechanics.
Well,
go ahead.
MOBA to me is kind of like it's basically like almost like an MMO PvP battleground. It's a 5-on-5 battle, whatever. And there are some games that I found I like that, and some games I just don't. Like, I really liked playing the PvP in Guild Republic. For whatever reason, I just don't like it as much in Guild Wars 2. So I don't know why that is. Just something that it's just how I like it or how I don't. And another thing we talked about a little while ago, a couple weeks, was I'm not a big fan of the building up as you go kind of thing. Because again, I talk about doing an MMO. You just go in with what you got, and that's what you have. I don't like as much spending the time in the shop trying to get your gear and so on. That notion just doesn't really appeal to me. It just kind of gets in the way, I think, of the action, at least in my mind. I know it's what's popular, it's what people like, but it just hasn't really been my thing.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, some people like the fact that the MOBA is sort of like a mini MMO. You get your items really quickly, you level up really quickly, you get powerful really quickly in comparison to an MMO. And then some people don't want the MMO aspects to be in the game so much. They want it to just be more focused on the action. I think that's what some of the MOBAs coming out, like Merc Elite, for example, the top-down shooter, is trying to achieve. But then from the flip side of this, Kevin, as a player, I know you play a lot of League of Legends. I know you're trying to get a Dota 2 key. What is it about, say, the new features in dawngate that you like or dislike, or what would it take you to get away from what you've known for so long? Because dawngate has dual lanes now instead of tri lanes. They've got economy objectives through these sort of wells that you can stand on to spawn little minions that collect resources much like an RTS, and they'll give you more gold. You can kill them. And then stop the gold flow for another team, and then recapture it, almost like the minions slightly. There's evolving minions, which deal with the striders, which basically are like the cannon minions. They attack towers. Once they destroy a tower, they get stronger, so it kind of pushes that lane further on. But then those towers will regenerate, which I think is an interesting mechanic. We see regenerating inhibitors in League of Legends, and in Dota we don't have anything regenerating. But this is sort of a new take on that, where it can actually push a lane back out. What for you is a necessary component or a key mechanic to get you interested in another MOBA without pulling you away from League of Legends, or pulling you away rather?
Well, the dual lane thing doesn't really mean much to me because it exists in other games. Like League does have its own dual lane in the Twisted Tree Line map. But I really like this whole respawning towers, evolving minions, kind of how they're all tied together. But at the same time, I'm a little hesitant about it because it does allow you to be... I mean, the game is more forgiving in that sense, because in League or in Dota, if you lose early towers, you're not getting them back. You made those mistakes, you have to deal with it. In this, if you can kind of stabilize and push back, you get your towers back, you basically get your inhibitors back, and you can start pushing the other way. And it kind of forgives you for making early mistakes, but at the same time, if your team is good and can outplay their team early, it may not mean anything late game. But I do like that towers can respawn because, again, for both sides of it, it does add that extra little planning side of it. But I really like this evolving minion idea. I like the fact that these striders get progressively stronger and stronger as the towers start disappearing. It really kind of just... It's not that all of a sudden, like, bam, they're super powerful. They're gradually. So it just kind of allows for an ever-flowing strategy that's constantly evolving. And I think that's something that actually will get me to at least try this. And comparatively, when I find out how it plays, I will actually make a decision whether I'm staying in the game or not.
Now, it's funny, the evolving minions and the regenerating towers, it's all supposed to sort of counter that early game push or that early game damage or devastation that's caused by taking a couple towers early. But then I kind of thought, like, what happens since the striders power up and it makes that tower or makes that lane, push farther? What happens if just it backfires, Like, yeah, okay, you have regenerating towers, but now there's all of a sudden these stronger striders, and then they keep pushing, and then next thing you know, you're inside the base, So
yeah, I think it does allow for a highly aggressive snowball strategy, too. I mean, it does allow for you, if you can successfully kind of turtle, yes, you'll get your towers back. But being the fact that every tower that goes down, they get stronger, I mean, if you're incredibly aggressive right off the bat, yeah, you could snowball it all the way through.
I can definitely see that being like a viable strategy, because it sort of reminds me of the heal promote strategy, or the promote rally strategy in League of Legends back from the beta, where basically everybody would take a promote skill and promote all of the minions in a minion wave. And so here you have like 6 minutes in, 7 or 8 5 promoted units, and these units are like stronger than cannons, and they tank towers really well, and you can heal them with a heal spell. Like, obviously they nerfed it, but that's sort of what I see as a potential happening in dawngate if they don't get the balance right. And if they balance it too much, if they counter it too much, if that tends to be a problem, then it could just nerf the overall fun or the aspect of that. I don't think they should remove that sort of strategy. I think they just need to make sure to carefully balance how well that strategy works and how easy it is to pull it off, I guess you could say. Talking about, or shifting gears rather, to speak about an MMO with a little bit of PvP issues, among other things, class balance, if you want to speak about balance. Neverwinter, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. We're not going to really beat the horse anymore, although we are still talking about it. But there is some new news, some stuff that gets away from sort of the woes the game's had and sort of started focusing on the future, what Neverwinter can become, if it can actually recoup from the disastrous sort of Astral Diamond Havoc exploit. And that deals with the addition of new classes, or a new class, some new pets, new mounts, of course. Some people care about that. But more importantly, I think, is the addition of a raid. And that may spell the first time parties bigger than 5, which I know is somewhat of a complaint of the games. Now, Jason or Kevin, have you guys actually gone back to Neverwinter after the whole glitch and madness and what have you? And has it been any better since then?
I played 4 hours today, if that tells you something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot better, but, I mean, the balance things are still not there. I spent some more time on it on a different class instead of the most OP one, and I definitely see what everyone talks about within, like, all the PvP and whatnot. So I'd really like to see that balance come in, but it is a lot better. They trying to kind of change the auction house and a few other things. But it's better, for sure. It's still got some major lag issues at times inside the, where you actually load into the, I'm blanking on the name, the central city inside the Neverwinter. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like,
the Protectorate Enclave.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Enclave.
It's still pretty laggy there when everyone's all running around in it, and once you get outside of it, it settles in and you're fine.
Well,
but
do you remember if you played World of Warcraft, Dalaran,
yeah.
Throughout the whole expansion, Dalaran was laggy. Like, there wasn't a day when Dalaran wasn't laggy. And that, they can reduce it all they want, but that's sort of what happens when there's a centralized location where people go to meet up to form parties and do all their trading and whatnot. And we've seen that in a lot of MMORPGs. I don't really know how much they can counter that other than doing what they can. But
it was doable. I mean, you just learn to deal with it inside there. Once you get out, again, it was perfectly fine. I didn't have any lag issues or anything like that outside of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the lead producer, Andy Velasquez, came out with sort of like a state of the game post where he discussed some of the things that they wanted to improve. Obviously, some of those had to do with network connectivity, fixing the lag issues, reducing the number of disconnects was a big thing, and then character balances shortly after that. So those are things that are upcoming for Neverwinter. Those are things that are scheduled to be implemented that hopefully will address a lot of the player complaints. Obviously, there is still some effects to be felt from that exploit with the Astral Diamonds. I know there's people that have said that they still haven't been banned, and obviously if they haven't been banned, they still have a lot of diamonds that will still continue to affect the economy for some time. Jason, I forget, have you been much of a Neverwinter player?
I was up till about 2 weeks ago, and I was up to like level 20, was doing, even making my own foundry quests and whatever. But yeah, with all the issues that have been going on, I haven't really looked back into it. And not only that, but I realized that I don't really care for... I'm not a big fan of betas much. I don't like to get heavily into them because I know they're going to be full of bugs and whatever. So, hey, if they want to say this is a beta, then, I'm not going to do a whole lot with it.
Yeah. That brings up an interesting point because when dealing with betas, most of the time you're like, okay, beta, you don't want to get invested too much because there's going to be a wipe or somehow, right?
Sure.
You want to experience it in its full glory when everything is banging on all cylinders. But with more and more open betas also, doubling as releases, I feel like if you decide to wait out the bugs that are inherent in open betas and decide not to treat that as a full release and put the time into it, by the time that you actually return to the game, I could feel that you may be behind in experiencing some of the content that was fresh and new when the game was out, if you were leveling at a pretty progressive rate, and all of a sudden players are now no longer playing that content, they move on to the next content, and so you kind of don't get to experience sort of that first wave of content. I've had that experience notably when I was leveling up in World of Warcraft, and just taking my time, not putting like a normal amount of time in World of Warcraft, just an hour here, an hour there. And by the time I was level 70, the game was already halfway through its expansion, and the content that I wanted to do that I was looking forward to do, no one was running. So do you ever worry about that, Jason? Have you ever experienced that since that you don't like to get heavily invested during beta periods?
See, that's what happens to me all the time too. It's like I am not usually a play 6 hours a day kind of guy. I'm an hour or two here or there, and I play enough different games that I don't really have the time to really necessarily invest heavily in one usually at a time. So I've accepted that that's how it's usually going to be, and that's why I also try to play games that are a little more forgiving in allowing that sort of thing, where I don't have to necessarily be at the exact same level as you. Stuff like Guild Wars 2, for instance. My first MMO was City of Heroes, which I talked about, which they had the sidekicking system originally. So, again, that is going to be an issue with Neverwinter. They don't really have anything like that. But I'm just going to deal with it, and I'll level when I level.
Yeah, you're just going to stick to your guns. You'll be like, I dictate when I'm going to play, not the game.
And it's not like manufacturers don't realize that that's what people, kind of do. And a lot of them have taken that kind of approach to find a way to get people of different levels to play with each other. And if you don't do that in your game, that's your choice. It's just how you're doing it.
It's funny that you say that because two MMOs that I can think of, one upcoming, one that's currently out, sort of approach that same situation from two different angles. So on the one hand, you have EVE, which is the sandbox space, ship MMO RPG, and EVE's progression is all built around time. You queue up a skill, that skill directly affects your performance in a certain sort of skill area, and you don't have to be online to progress. You can be offline, you can be accruing that skill, and once it's done, it can take anywhere from a couple minutes to days, to months sometimes. But once it's done, you have that new acquired skill, and you didn't actually have to spend the time in game to do so. And that may, have some people being like, well, you're just paying to play the game just to sit there and wait. And I'd argue that that's not the case, because at the same time, you can still do things in the game when you want, make money by doing missions or doing PvP with people, because it's a sandbox MMO. That's what it's about. It's about making your own sort of story or adventure. And you don't have to worry about progressing so much, because you're always progressing. And then the flip side of that is an MMO that we don't know if it's going to be free to play or not. I suspect it won't, but it is a good example of this, which is WildStar, which is upcoming. And WildStar has this sort of buddy progression system, essentially, whereby someone that's higher level can go and help a lower level character, and both of them get rewards. So they can, party up and do low-level quests and dungeons and what have you at the same difficulty, because he gets downgraded. And both of them will get something applicable to the time that they put into that. So I think those are two separate and both equally viable options to handling situations like this. Neverwinter doesn't really have that. They do have it somewhat with their crafting system. You can do it online, obviously. Queue it up. It does sort of an e-progression system where it takes time. But that is sort of one of the main issues I have with a lot of modern MMOs right now, is that there should be always a way for people to enjoy the content at their own pace, and have everybody else be world first and whatnot, without that person feeling like they'll never be able to see all of the content, just due to the fact that the game is always moving, things are always being added, and people are always moving on.
It's my opinion the game should do everything they can to encourage you to play with others, and having barriers like level. Well, you need some sort of progression, but having it be a really hard kind of thing like that, I think sometimes works against that.
Certainly. Kevin, is there anything that you would like to see in sort of a update to that kind of system? Maybe not Neverwinter specifically, but just in general, since we're on the topic.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I like the idea that the WildStar is doing, and it actually kind of reminds me of if you ever played Borderlands on a console. It kind of pulled off the same thing. You could have basically someone power level you. Now, I'm not suggesting that we need to have that happen, where you just tag along, hide in a corner, and someone earns all your experience for you. But I like the idea of being able to help out a lower level, because at the end of the day, a lot of these times you want to end up playing games like this with friends. And if you're level 50, your friend's level 2, that's not necessarily going to happen. We see it in things like League and whatnot, where you just sit there waiting for your friend to, and you don't really get to do anything. So, some things try to do it by giving the lower level guy a boost up to the level when you're doing things like PvP. And that's okay. I think that's kind of like a mini fix. But just something that encourages, again, that playing together, that benefits everybody. without the cost of actual gameplay.
Fair enough. All right, so going to move on here next. Now, talking a little bit more about League of Legends, and MOBA updates, I guess you could say. They had League of Legends Riot Games had their All-Star tournament in Shanghai this last week. And at the All-Star tournament, they showcased the new Magma Chamber map. Now, that's something that was originally announced, I think, in 2011 or 10, a while ago, but was never released. It was supposed to be a big map that focused on smaller fights, more intimate fights, I guess you could say. And they've kind of just thrown that concept out the window and gone with, basically, they took an all-random, all-mid map and made it for 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 on the Magma Chamber. I'm a little bit peeved at this, I have to say, because Magma Chamber was a map that I was looking forward to, but I can definitely see the desire for this map from players, because players have always wanted something like this. However, I don't really think League of Legends is designed as a game with that sort of combat in mind. It's always been team play, and certainly characters aren't always balanced around 1v1 situations. Now, I know, Kevin, you are the big League player here. What is your sort of impression or overall feelings toward this map?
Beyond being incredibly skill intensive and hoping that you don't have some just bad luck, it's too small. The win conditions that they currently have set up are, well, if you watched any of the coverage, the matches last for a whole 2 minutes. I mean, what fun is that? So, I'm not really impressed with it. If the map was to be or just released as is, as we saw it, visually it's not even that attractive. It looks like a T with an extra line in it and a little bit of lava flowing through it. It doesn't give me any sort of chamber feel to it. It's all around a big disappointment.
Yeah, they mentioned that the map wasn't done, of course. It doesn't come out until the beginning of Season 4, or right before the beginning of Season 4, I should say. So that itself, I don't expect to see additional features or too many additional features added right now. They may do that. I would kind of nice to see things off on the sides. We did see sort of those side lane areas. So maybe a creep or something like that. They can give them a buff so they don't have to go back to their shop or something. But yeah, I was not impressed. I'd argue to say the all-random, all-mid map had more ingenuity in it than the 1 versus 1 and 2 versus 2. Now, Jason, I know that you aren't really a MOBA player. We just talked about that, not much of League of Legends, so not too much to add to that. But something that I think all of us can add to the conversation is dealing with the new cinematic trailer that was just released today for League of Legends. It was a Riot fan service, if you will, and it was called A Twist of Fate. And can you imagine what champion was in this?
Wait, no, I got it. Hang on. Was it Twisted Fate?
It was Twisted.
Fate of Twisted, whatever.
Twisted Fate, of course.
Yeah.
Twisted Fate, Fiddlesticks, Nocturne, Garen, Katarina, Trindir.
I know that much. I know who some of the characters are.
Yeah.
I even play some. I play a lot of Morgana. It's my favorite.
Oh, see, you do play a little bit of League of Legends.
I'm like a level 13 or 14. I mean, I've done some, I'm not.
That's
not
enough.
that good.
That's enough. That's enough experience to add in something right there.
And I actually just wanted to throw in that I think it was at GDC last year when I sat in on a panel that they were giving about the creation of Dominion. Really? And they said, and as you might know, the Magma Chamber map was originally their concept for Dominion. And
really, that was?
Yeah, so if you look at like the prototype, it's kind of like a circular thing, and that's kind of how Dominion looks. It's kind of circular approach, but yeah, they've reworked it since then into what we have now.
Okay, I see. From the trailer that I actually saw, there were some new things to be gleaned. They were in areas that did not look like any of the maps currently available. I mean, I saw Rise running through these falling pillars of bodies stacked on top of each other, they look like at times. They were crashing and what have you, and I was like, I have no idea where that is. And then there was a new surprise at the end of the video. A new Baron model is sort of what was hinted at there. For those of you that don't know, or not big League of Legends players, or are League of Legends players but don't know a lot about the lore, the Baron Nashor, the big not lizard, but the big snake slash tentacle thing that comes out of the ground. It's a big buff that you get from him. That is not the real Baron Nashor. That is merely a recreation or a copy of some extent of the original. The original, I believe, is in the Void. And that one looks much more similar to the one seen in the cinematic. So I was actually pretty stoked. I haven't played League of Legends really actively in a while, but I love their cinematic style, and the company behind it, called Blur, is actually known for doing other well-known cinematics, such as the SWTOR cinematics, all the Star Wars The Old Republic cinematics, with the Stormtroopers. Sorry, people are going to be mad. Sorry. The
Republic Troopers.
The Clone Troopers.
No, they're not clones yet. They're not clones.
Not clones yet. Oh my god, they're going to be even more than that.
Oh my god, you're not a real geek. Get out.
I don't know any of this.
Go sit in the corner.
Where's Darth Maul? No, I'm just kidding. Referencing episode 1, that'd be terrible to do. What are they called? They're just like Republic Troopers, right? That's all they are. Republic Troopers. Exactly. There we go. So, yeah, high quality stuff there.
Yeah, that was the best part of SWTOR, I think, was the trailers.
The trailers, I know, right? You're like, oh man, I can't wait to play this game. Then you get in the game like, tab target. Okay. Kevin, what did you actually think of the cinematic?
I only wish the graphics in the game were even half as good as the cinematic. It was really beautifully well done. I mean, it was more than just like the characters looking good. They had some emotion. There was. I liked it. It was really, really beautifully done.
One thing you could argue is that the Dota 2 models versus the League of Legends models, art style is one thing. You know, those are two separate things, don't get me wrong. But there certainly is a lot of depth to the models in Dota 2, and a lot of sort of character nuances. They even talk. You see them talking in the little portraits. I wish the League of Legends would do that. I think that would be pretty awesome to have.
I would argue that League of Legends on the highest resolution settings with all the effects still looks worse than Dota 2 on pretty much the lowest settings with the lowest effects.
I've never played Dota 2 at the lowest settings, so I cannot commentate on it. But I think they both have their own sort of art style. League of Legends obviously is more playable due to system specs and what have you. But their newer models have sort of been upping their game, essentially. There are artists and animators getting more of a fluid feel to them and a more sharp look to the models. Twisted Fate being one of the best examples of a rework that really changed him from a tiny little minuscule man with pointed shoes to this more sleek, card thrower with better animations and sounds and what have you. Annie is another example of that. By the way, the Tibbers in that cinematic looked amazing. Although I'm not really sure how Baron gained the ability to eat Tibbers. So apparently maybe they're going to rework Baron so he has consume. He can eat minions around if you're trying to fight him.
So that's the secret of the movie. It was actually Nunu in a Baron Nashor costume.
A Nunu in a Baron. That's a giant Nunu then. There was also Katarina using like all of her cooldowns 90 times or something like that.
Well, that's what Katarina in every video.
I know, Katarina. You have to have some boob service, First
yeah,
it was Ash and Katarina. No, it was boob service both times from Katarina. And the first cinematic she bent backwards, and this time she bent forwards. I see what Riot's doing there. Subliminal messaging with Katarina.
It's not very subliminal. It's not very subtle.
No, sorry, not subliminal, but it's for the same character.
Yep.
We'll see if they go 3 for 3 next time. All right. So our next article here deals with a new MMORPG, finally getting back to some MMO news. And this is for a free-to-play MMORPG called Skyforge. What's so special about Skyforge, you may say? Well, the two developers currently working on this are very well known. First, we have the Allods Online developers, Allods Team, which is really weird to say in one sentence. You'd be like, Allods Team, the developer behind Allods Online. You're like, wait, Allods Team. Okay. And then, of course, Obsidian Entertainment. Now, Obsidian is best known, I think, for recently having a Kickstarter worth practically $4 million. Project Eternity. Very popular, obviously. It's an RPG. A lot of people looking forward to that. 73,000, almost 74,000 backers. Holy crap, that's a lot of backers. But Obsidian Entertainment obviously has a big name behind them. They're really well known for creating depth in their projects and in their stories. They worked on Neverwinter Nights, Fallout New Vegas, South Park Stick of Truth, which still hasn't came out yet, and the Old Republic too. So I think some of those are really well-known games. I honestly don't really know what to expect out of the MMO Skyforge. The press release was in Russian, and I don't know Russian, and I did a little bit of Google translating, and it still didn't give me a lot of information. But it's been in development since 2010, and only recently did Obsidian come on as a co-developer. So I'm not really sure how much they're going to be adding to this. Now, Jason, I wanted to get your opinion. How much do you think a company coming in, say, 2 or 3 years into MMO's development, we don't have a release date yet, so we don't know how far it is in development yet, and there hasn't been really much gameplay. But when you see companies in the past come onto a project as like co-developers, historically speaking, what have you known to have them add to the development from cases that you've seen?
Not really a whole lot. I mean, it's like you said, they're coming in 2-3 years into development. Already the basics of it have been laid down, and they know how the format is going to be and what what the big hook is, whatever that is, like action combat in Terra or voice acting in SWTOR, which wasn't like in that same situation. But every MMO has to have its hook. It's going to have something that makes it look different, makes people want to play it. They probably aren't able to add a whole lot on that. Probably it's more of like a refinement kind of deal where they're just trying to help along the final or near final development issues of it. But I mean, it's not like I would necessarily look at Obsidian Entertainment and say, well, clearly, or look at Project Eternity and say, well, because Obsidian did that, it's going to be like that. And I don't think it's like that. I think it's more like we talk about SOE, where they aren't the SOE guys, Smedley himself and the guys who work on PlanetSide or EverQuest or whatever, the programmers, they're not doing a whole lot with, Dragon's Prophet. It's more like they're just kind of housing it. They're helping it come over. And I think that's kind of similar with Obsidian. You're not necessarily going to look at what else Obsidian has done and say, well, this game's going to be like that.
Yeah, I would think that would be more of a conversion, basically like making it into something that's more westernized market.
Hopefully doing a better job with the matching with voice acting.
Hopefully, and Obsidian is really well known for doing very good storylines, but I don't think they're adding so much of the storyline as they are just making the storyline more cohesive for a Western audience, you could argue. And
I was just going to say, which might be a little bit of an issue for if you don't think it's something that Obsidian is having a big deal with. You're basically more likely to make a judgment on based on what you thought of Allods, which could not be that great a thing.
No, Allods certainly had its pay-to-win moments. There's a lot of players that play it and still do play it, but it certainly has its flaws and its rough areas. It's essentially a WoW clone in several respects, or was when it originally was released. I don't know how much has changed since then. But there are still people that play it a lot, and still a lot of people who would back or who would, play Allods Team's new MMO Skyforge. So I definitely think that some people would be excited about the announcement, but I'm not really sure how much we can read into what they will add in terms of quality. Obviously, is Obsidian being on the team rather than no Obsidian is better than nothing. Like, you're still gaining something there, but what you gain is what is up in question. Kevin, as a gamer, would this sort of excite you? Have you played a lot of Obsidian's past work?
A few of them. It's the biggest thing is I hope that they can bring the polish and kind of the experience side of it. If as a newer team, having someone come in, especially again a Western established among a large fan base, they're going to be able to make sure that the game gets that look that it's going to be wanted in the Western market, as well as making sure it gets the attention in the right areas. That it's not so focused on one thing and not working on bugs or so on and so forth. If anything, I did kind of notice of Obsidian is they weren't that bad as far as their the games being buggy when they came out. They were really well done on that side, and it's something like that as we've really seen recently can really make a difference.
Well, I would argue that Knights of the Old Republic 2 was extremely buggy upon release, but I don't think that was really Obsidian's fault. They were sort of pushed into releasing it early, so a lot of things had to be cut, and in Fallout New Vegas was also extremely buggy. But again, things were it's what happens when you have a publisher sort of overlording over you and has, dates that you have to push things out to. We could see, I definitely think Obsidian is being brought on, like me and Jason has said, as a more of localization or at least assistance. They haven't made an MMORPG before. So I think they're going to be brought in for more of their expertise in storytelling, because all of their games and past experience have had spectacular stories. That's, I think, one of the main things that they're known for their gaming prowess and developer potential. So I'm looking forward to it. We don't really know too many details to Skyforge. It is fairly impressive. There is a couple of screenshots out and 20 seconds of gameplay / flyover. And the graphics look on par with Terra, at least on par with Terra. It's got some pretty impressive water graphics and crisp details, I guess you could say. Obsidian, I'm not really sure what they would gain out of this. Obviously, they're getting contract money, which may be something they needed to do to finish Project Eternity, despite having $4 million. You may not know this, but a lot of developers do contract work. It's why sometimes developers work with other developers, because they need that money to continue funding their current project that they're working on in-house. So that may be another thing. I can definitely see Obsidian jumping on a project like this. MMOs always have big budgets and lots of cash flow. But right now, I'm saying I'm going to be tentative. Skyforge still has tab targeting for its skills. We don't know exactly how that's sort of going to play out. 15 classes, though. That's pretty crazy.
Didn't Allods have 20 or something?
I don't know. I
stopped counting. I think. Yeah.
15 classes, though, as long as they're each individually different and distinct, which I would argue it can kind of get hard after, maybe 10 classes to do that. Especially with balance-wise. I can't imagine. I would think I would, die of early age if I was a developer or a designer or a balance individual on any MMO with over 10 to 15 classes, because how do you try to make all that even and enjoyable without everything just becoming homogenized? I don't know. So we're going to sort of change gears a bit, talk a little bit about consoles. There was several new consoles announced within the month of May. We had the PS4, we had the Xbox One, not the original Xbox, but the new Xbox that goes by One, which is a silly name in itself.
X-Bone.
X-Bone.
Yep.
Back on topic, we were talking about War Thunder, which is a new port, or going to be ported to the PS4. Of course, it's a free-to-play combat flight shooter MMO that's being developed or has been developed and been released on the PC. It's now going to be announced, or it's now been announced rather, on the PS4. It's going to be moving to the PS4. And this is sort of the first free-to-play game that's been announced for the PS4 that isn't already available on the PS3 that's free-to-play. The other one I can think of is Dust 514. So I think this sort of starts to bring up the question, and Jason, this is something that you've discussed quite a lot. This brings up the question of, are we going to see more sort of free-to-play getting its foot in the door? We sort of saw it dipping its toes, its pinky toe, in the water of free-to-play in the console division towards the end of 2012 and, of course, 2013. But is this next generation going to really start marking the free-to-play arms race in the console? Now, Jason, you did a lot of research on this. You wrote an article about it, which you guys can read on MMOBomb.com, called Free-to-Play in Consoles, Has the Time Finally Come? Written by Jason. Jason, what do you feel is going to be the near future for free-to-play games and the new consoles to come out?
I think it's definitely going to be a much bigger thing with this current generation of consoles, or the next generation of consoles, because we're so far moving away from the sort of old way of producing games, which was, you buy a cartridge or a disc or whatever, and you have to bring that, and you have to physically move it and whatever. And that, of course, doesn't work with free-to-play. You can't really... Not really. You can't buy... You have to buy something usually to do that. But the consoles are more like computers now, just like on your PC. You can download a game, you try it out for free, you play a browser game, whatever. And that, I think, is a major vehicle towards making free-to-play, because free-to-play is all about accessibility. The more accessible you make your game, the easier you make it for people to get into it, the more people you can have. That's why League of Legends has 70 million players, why World of Tanks has 35 million or whatever. Part of it is because of the accessibility of it. If you had to actually go to a store to buy a League of Legends disc or whatever, that would be part of an impediment. That would be something that would make it harder for people to play it. That's part of the reason why I think you're going to see it more in consoles, because they're almost like small computers now.
They are small computers.
Yeah, your PS4, your Xbox One. You just hook it up. You get on the internet. You can, Xbox go find the sports scores online or whatever. You can do that sort of thing. And I think that's going to be I think that's sort of the major thing now that is going to make it so that you're more likely to see more free-to-play games on consoles.
Yeah, certainly. They have the same architecture now that PCs do. They use basically not x86, but they use PC architecture to some respects that allows them to use the same processors that we do, obviously slightly tweaked, things like graphics cards and whatnot. But I definitely see an influx of both games that, like you mentioned, are already on the PC that are free-to-play moving over, and then new games overall that just take advantage of that market and those controller interfaces. Because there's some games that just handle better on console. You know, there's just innate games that, for me, I can do way better on console than I can on PC, and then on PC, there's ones that I can do way better than I can do on console, such as like a shooter. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if I'd actually buy a console just to play free-to-play games on it, even if it became a popular thing. Kevin, would you actually invest into like a new PlayStation 4? I'm going to assume PlayStation 4 because we've been ragging on the Xbox One. But would you invest in that to start playing new free-to-play games? Would you view that as basically like buying another computer?
Yeah, I'd look at it as buying another computer that could also handle a few other tasks, actually.
Didn't you see the Xbox One? You can now be on a Skype call and do something else at the same time.
Because I would totally want to be distracted playing like a shooter while I'm on, like in Skyping, because someone yells at me, all of a sudden you turn in real life and actually turn in the game because Skype the Kinect's tracking you and you get shot in the head. That sounds like a ton of fun for me.
I just thought it was hilarious that they were touting multitasking as like a new thing when I'm like, I've been able to do this on my computer for I don't know how long now.
At least I've never owned an Xbox. I've never owned any kind of Xbox because I realized I have a computer.
Exactly.
I already have basically a Microsoft machine.
I bought an Xbox 360 just for one fighting game. I have not bought any games after that. Just one fighting game, and I've never used it before. I use my PlayStation 4 for Netflix. It's a Netflix box. That's all it is. We just don't use them. I got a PC. It does everything I want. I could still connect my PC to my TV if I wanted to, but the cord's not long enough. Maybe eventually I'll do that one day. But yeah, I certainly would see a lot of players influxing into console free-to-play. Bigger free-to-play market to me is always nice. I'm going to have to get some kind of box so I can record first looks for console games. And maybe I'll just write it up as a work expense from buying a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One so I can test out the latest free-to-play games on consoles. That's
your ulterior motive. That's why you want there to be more free-to-play games on consoles. So
I have to buy it. You have to. We need it. We need this. Exactly.
Yeah, I need one too. Yep.
Yeah. We'll put us down for 3. We'll get 3 of each. 3 of each. That's our motive. Now 3 of each. We need 3. There's 3 of us. 3 of each. 2 consoles. Yep. Because we're not counting the Wii U. That's another. That's a whole nother terrible game, or not game, but console. All right, so weekly bombs. Finally, we got a little bit of news to go through, but we're down to the weekly bombs here. Of course, this is where we rant, we rave, we talk about what we like, what we didn't like from the past week. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and tell us your weekly bomb to begin with, since I see that you've written it down here.
Yeah, I'm going to give it the bomb to a Netflix hosting Season 4 of Arrested Development. Been waiting, and I could not be happier. I am just overjoyed. It's the greatest thing of all time, at least for this week.
Jason, did you ever watch Arrested Development?
I did not, no.
I didn't either, but my wife did, and she's like nagging me to watch it so that I can catch up and then watch Season 4 with her, because apparently it's like a really good show that got canceled way before its time.
Way before its time. It was amazing.
I only have the spare love for one show like that, and that's Firefly.
Firefly? That's like the one show you want to return. You're like, oh, he ended too early.
Yeah.
I've only seen the movies. Am I a bad person?
Yes, you are.
Oh, man.
Were we supposed to hesitate there? Sorry, try again.
Oh, you totally hurt my feelings because you didn't give me any benefit of the doubt. All right, now it looks like I have 2 shows I have to go back and watch. Both of you all should watch Walking Dead, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Adventure Time. There, that's 4 shows right there. Hopefully you guys are watching all of those. Those are my contributions to this.
I don't watch any of those.
You don't watch any of them? Jason.
I watched some of them. I won't name which ones.
It's okay. Adventure Time. I'll admit it. I love that show.
I love that one too. That's one of the ones I watch.
It's like a guilty pleasure. It's so good. It's good writing at a time, and at other times you're just like, what's going on? I don't even understand. All right, so my weekly bomb is going to have to go towards. I got to give my weekly bomb to Riot Games. I haven't played League of Legends in a while, but when Riot does fan service, they do fan service. And if you hate the game, if you don't hate the game, you got to admit it was a good trailer. I really thought their latest trailer, it blew me away because I played the game for such a long time when I was a player of League of Legends, and you always envision the characters doing more than what they show on screen, right? You always envision them like really clashing with each other. We've seen sort of fan animations done of cartoons of them actually clashing together. And so to see that really come to life and see that in a more realistic, quote unquote, as realistic as it can get, sort of environment is something that it made me like a little bit giddy, like a little schoolgirl inside, to see like Crow Storm and Garen do spin to win and, bring down his sword and all that stuff. And it warmed my heart. It's warmed my heart. So big the bomb to Riot Games. If you made a feature movie out of League of Legends characters, I would see it.
You gotta think there's one coming.
You would
as
expect.
Big as it is.
Well, I mean, there was supposed to be a World of Warcraft MMO, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, so...
Yeah.
If Riot Games is like the next Blizzard, which hopefully they don't end up like Blizzard, but if Riot Games was the next Blizzard, then you would expect a League of Legends MMO to hit probably in like 5 years or so, 6 years, given the current
I'm a little
rate.
surprised they haven't... You'd think they would be doing some other kind of merchandising. Or
they do a ton of merchandising. If you ever go to any of their events or their website, there's T-shirts and like there's mini Trinity Forces and Teemo hats.
Yeah.
But yeah, video merchandising.
I meant like other games. What I meant. I guess.
Oh, other games. Okay. Well, maybe I think they did say, or it was leaked at one point, that they were working on another title. But obviously, that if anything, if that's still the case, it's many years out because we haven't heard an inkling of that. And League of Legends is up to, 32 million players now? So, yeah. They're going to keep milking that cow for as long as they can for their most foreseeable future. Now, Jason, what is your da-bomb?
I have a da-bomb for Team Fortress 2.
Really?
I watched you play it about a week and a half ago on your stream, and I got back into it. I've been playing a pretty good amount like for the last week and a half. It's just amazing to me how even, 5 years after it came out, it's still just fun. It's still just a fun game. I got into it about maybe 2 years ago, like when it went free to play, and I just enjoy getting into it every now and then. I'll go like 6 months without playing, then I'll get the bug again. I'll just sit and I'll play it, every other day for like 2 weeks or something. And it's
you
just great.
Talk to the people on the servers?
I try not to talk to people in general now.
Really?
No. I just pretty much go out there and do my thing. And it is a casual shooter, and I'm not great at shooters, but the fact that I can go out there and be pretty good, and pretty much, I can sort of, I understand what the roles are well enough, and I understand what other people are supposed to do. So I'm like, I know to spy check, I know to, if I'm a medic, I attach myself to a heavy, and so on. You get those kind of tactics right off, and I feel like it's a game that I've really learned real well, and I can really. I almost call myself an expert at it.
I feel like Team Fortress 2, because I've had the game since it originally came out, I feel like Team Fortress 2 is that game where like you feel like, oh yeah, I understand the mechanics, you can really grasp them, and then you see someone do something like crazy, and you're like, oh man, I didn't even realize you could do that kind of thing. Like I've seen people, sticky jump across the map, hit someone in the back of the head, insta kill them or something like that. And I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even know you could fly that far. And here I am, doing my sticky bombs. I just blow up right there. Or go straight in the air. Or I don't even play soldier. I don't try to rocket jump. I'm like the worst soldier ever. Because when I rocket jump, I just do damage to myself. I don't even send myself in the air. But yeah, it's still fun to play. I still enjoy it to play. It's still a game that you can come back to and feel like you progressed in, but feel like you have friends in it. I almost liken some of the servers to like mini bars. You just go out there and hang out with the people inside. You guys all have a good time. You kill each other a little bit. You make jokes. Things are written in chat. Things are traded. What have you. It's overall a pretty fun experience. Kevin, have you had much success with Team Fortress 2?
Yeah, I used to play the crud out of a spy. I haven't been playing it lately, but I've been meaning to get back into it, and it's one of those that every time I do pick it up and play it again, I'm like, yeah, I do like this game, so this is still a really, really good game.
You know what I'm going to have you do now next time I see you?
We're going to play.
No. I want you to give me your best impression of Spy Crab.
Oh no. Okay, sure.
Just do the Spy Crab walk looking in the air.
This is going to be bad, but sure.
It's going to be. I'm going to have to put that up on YouTube.
Okay, then that you just lost it now.
No. I won't put it up on YouTube. I'll just record it. I'll just have it for my own personal sake. Something I bring out at parties. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so moving on to the member bomb then. The first person here we have is Bullseye. He says, I'd also like to give a massive A-bomb to Cryptic Perfect World after the introduction of the new Legacy of Romulus expansion in Star Trek Online. Many people, myself included, have been having an issue where your character can't be accessed. You just get stuck on the loading screen forever. Once it happens, you can never recover. It's just bad news in general for Cryptic this week, it seems. Man, oh, and after last week's news, ironic the bomb for Shasso 33. Shasso, you're going to be infamously tied to MMOBomb and Neverwinter comments now. Like, everybody's just going to reference Shasso 33 every time someone says something about Neverwinter. They're going to be like, oh man, Neverwinter sucks. Right, Shasso 33? I'm going to put it in the comments. Yes, I would have to say Cryptic is having the bunt of the jokes sent to them today.
They're not having a good month.
No, they are not. They're having a good month because they release, but at the same time, they're having a terrible month.
Oh, they're bringing in the money, I'm sure.
They're bringing in the money, but at the same time, they're worrying about the future. Or at least I would be.
Most profitable open beta ever.
Really?
I'm just making that up.
Oh, man, I thought you actually had stats for something like this. I was like, where did this come from? How did they know? All right, so, Jason, why don't you take the second member bomb here?
All right, from Shasso33, he says, I wasn't going to initially do this, but A-bomb to Cryptic for not fixing a serious game bug that was present in closed beta. I will, however, have to give him a thumbs up for giving everyone who wasn't banned a cool new cape and mask through the mail.
The cape with Catastrophe, get it? Catastrophe,
Catastrophe,
Catterday or whatever. Yes, man.
They screwed up, but they gave us free loot to try to make up for it.
It wasn't that good of free loot, though. It was like
it was all...
Yeah.
Well, no, the mask was cosmetic, which is one of those... That's cool, it's on when you want to wear it, but the cape is something that actually takes the place of an amulet or anything you're wearing on your neck, so it actually makes you weaker if you want to wear it.
Really?
Not a fan of that. Yep.
So it's catastrophic to your stats, you would say?
It was quite the catastrophe, sure.
Oh. Gonna have a lot of cat puns the rest of the night, maybe? So yeah, those are our member bonds. All of them revolving around Shasso 33 and Cryptic. We should just call them Cryptic bombs. So weekly questions.
Be kidding me right now.
Oh. So the weekly questions from the viewers then. Last week's question was specifically dealing with, do you think games should have cash shop items for players to purchase to help them catch up in games? So we used Rift as an example of an MMO that is going to use the cash shop to, of course, bring players up to speed for those that want on current content. Not get them with current content, but get them prepared for current content. And Vuko88 says, I think it's great. I think it's a great idea to add rating gear of lower tiers in cash shop when you're releasing an expansion. If it's not account or character binded or bound, and you can buy it from paying players, but making it available this way from the core game's launch day would be disastrous for game's lifespan and auction house economy. I don't know if I was just reading that weird or if the grammar was bad, but I was trying to change it at the same time. And essentially what he was saying is, hopefully it wouldn't be disastrous to the game's economy, the game's lifespan, players just wouldn't purchase and just skip over content. And I think that's true. I think if it's in its right place and it's not too expensive, it is available for players who want to get just up to speed, who are new, it certainly is a good option. And then, Jason, can you even try to pronounce that? How are you going to pronounce that?
The next guy?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Herflick.
Herflick?
I'm going to assume the 3 is an E.
Oh, I was going to have you say, like, Heathreek or Heathreek. I don't know.
I'm going to go with Herflick.
Okay.
Apparently likes chick flicks. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, he says, usually no gear should be sold in the cash shop, but it all depends on the gear they want to sell, which kind of confuses me right off the start, but we'll keep going. We know that it's not top-tier gear, so not the best. That's a plus. Give an example of tiered gear like gray, white, green, yellow, gold from the cash shop should contain something like green, with its moderate drop and isn't really hard to get. So I guess what he's saying is he doesn't mind like mid-level gear being sold, but he doesn't want anything above... on a scale of 1 to 10, he doesn't mind stuff up to like 6 being sold, but 7 and higher he wouldn't want.
I would argue that blue would be okay. I think blue would be okay.
He doesn't even list blue. That blue's not even listed there.
I know. He just skips from green to yellow. He goes from uncommon to legendary. There's no purple in there. He's like, just skips over. It's like you either get mediocre gear or you get the best gear. You don't get like the average gear. You get mediocre or the best. He skips 2 tiers altogether. But
yeah, I mean, the funny thing about Rift is that they don't. Well, I mean, they do have that, but what they're doing with their thing is it's like there are number tiers.
Oh, really?
And it's all based on like how good your rank is in PvP. For instance, if you want to buy PvP gear, so you still have to get the rank, I guess, and that's something. But I could see there'd be some issues with people people trying to realize they have to grind up for the stuff, and realize other people aren't going to do that necessarily.
Yeah, that's understandable. All right, so for the question of this week, we have, what game would you like to see community-created content updates added to? Now, you mentioned just earlier, Jason, you gave a bomb to Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 just recently had a community-only update to it. Basically, the community got together. It was only hats, but it was completely created by the community. They are the ones that got together and actually formulated what they were going to release, made the content themselves. Valve didn't even make the content. And I think that is an ingenious way for companies to sort of involve the community and directly see the community benefit from their hard work and their labor and their intensive labor, and get some of those funds, in that sort of income that the items that were sold in the update generated back. So it's ingenious in my opinion, rather. For Valve to go ahead and do something, and it's definitely going to ensure that the game continues to see updates even past the point where Valve isn't the main sort of content creator for the game. Did you actually partake of any of the new update content, Jason?
I did not notice that. No, I did not. But just going on the same note, I mean, talking about a game like Neverwinter with its user-generated content and updates. That's the sort of thing where, I kind of agree that it's something that a lot of games are going to have to introduce, because otherwise they just can't keep up with with how quickly people consume it.
Gotcha. Kevin, are you clicking a mouse on your screen or something?
Yes, sorry.
I hear just a bunch of clicks, like click, 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 click. Alright, so that's going to be the question of this week, though. If you guys have anything additional you want to add, feel free to leave comments down below or on the official MMOBomb page regarding the free-to-play cast. I have been your host, Spunkify. As always, before we wrap this up, we're going to go ahead and plug our usual YouTubes and Twitters. You can check me, Spunkify, out on youtube.com/freemmogamer, the website you're watching this right now. Do my weekly free-to-play cast, as well as other first looks. And if you want to chat me up through email, you can do so at michael@MMOBomb.com. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, @Spunkify, SPUNKIFY. Jason, do you want to hit everybody up with your Twitter like you usually do?
Yes, I'm Twitterish, at Winter Informal.
At Winter Informal. So all the Twittering at Winter Informal. Gotcha.
Twitter at me.
And then, Kevin, hopefully those clicks were you creating a Twitter account so people can actually talk to you.
Actually, it was me working to get Team Fortress 2 back on my computer.
Oh, look at this, man. At least you were doing something free-to-play related. I have to commend you on that, at least. You can just play, you're just going to sit there in San Diego and play Team Fortress 2 all weekend?
Probably not until later in the week.
I see. Well, I'll have to play with you. All three of us will have to play sometime. Maybe we can do a gameplay commentary where we all play Team Fortress 2. I think that would be quite enjoyable. I think the fans would enjoy that as well. We'll have to try to set that up. But for all of us here on the Free Play Cast, thanks for dealing with my mumblings and bumblings at times. And we'll see you guys for the next episode here. Smokify out. Later, guys.